Welcome to an introduction to Restorative Practices Community Circles. Many years ago, I was a counselor at a summer camp. I worked in a village with 8th through 10th grade girls who came from different towns, socioeconomic backgrounds, cultural histories, and interests. Needless to say, in the course of 2 weeks living in a cabin like this with 2 counselors and up to 11 girls, some conflict arose. Sure, the first few days were always rosy. They were just getting to know one another. But by the 3rd or 4th day, inevitably, someone would end up with sand in their bunk due to the person above them carelessly stepping on the lower bed in order to reach something they'd left behind. Or the screen door to the cabin would be left open, and we would all suffer through a night of mosquitoes buzzing in our ears. When such things occurred, it was critical for my co-counselor and me to find a way to address the conflict and reestablish the community of our cabin quickly, so the incident did not go on to ruin anyone's camp experience. We had learned in staff training about how Native American tribes would gather in a circle to discuss plans, celebrate accomplishments, and even resolve differences. I learned to establish the same practice in my cabin, beginning and ending each day in a circle to help us to get to know one another. And when conflict arose, we would gather in our circle again to find resolution and peace. Since the 1970s, much research has gone into the use of restorative practices in schools, starting with incorporating restorative justice with youth offenders and expanding into a model of using circles as a way of building rapport, relationship, and community. Today, our aim is to introduce you to the restorative model and to challenge you to think about your classroom management practices in a new way. This video is not an exhaustive tutorial on this model. Rather, it is a taste that we hope will whet your appetite to learn more. A list of resources will be given at the end of the video to help you to extend your learning. The idea of building strong relationships with your students is not a new one. For several years now, educators have been hearing the call to connection before curriculum. You know that greeting students at the door and learning about their lives outside your classrooms helps you to manage your classrooms more effectively. Checking in with every student on a regular basis gives you emotional collateral that can help you to solve issues when they arise and understand more deeply why specific students struggle more than others. Restorative practices help you to take what you are already doing individually with your students to the next level. You can take those relationships and build a community of learners that care more about one another's success as much as they care about their own. The cornerstone of restorative practice is the community circle. As I mentioned in the introduction, this practice of circling up has a long history in Native American culture, as well as other indigenous cultures around the world. Circles were a way of life and were used consistently to bind the community together as a unit. Some of the qualities of community circles that make them so powerful are safe communication. Everyone gets the opportunity to speak without interruption or judgment. This is accomplished through the use of a talking piece. This object is passed around the circle, and only the person holding it is allowed to speak. Shared power. Notice in the picture that the adult is an equal to the students. She is not standing or in any other way exerting authority. Everyone has an equal voice. Shared responsibility. Circles provide a supportive space for everyone to talk freely about sensitive topics or to resolve differences. It is important to establish confidentiality in your circle. Everyone needs to be able to trust that what they share will remain their story to tell elsewhere, and only if they choose. And connection. All of these qualities build upon one another to establish a special connection between your students and yourself. As we will discuss later, this connection becomes a powerful tool when something happens in your classroom to disrupt it. Students will be motivated to reestablish this connection and the sense of community they have come to expect with one another. So, what do you do if you learn that a student in your class is being teased and singled out? Or a student stands up and openly defies you or even yells at you? Or worse yet, you walk into class one day and find this going on. Most of the time, any one of these situations would result in, at the least, a removal from class and a discussion in the hallway, or, at the most, a referral to the office and an expectation of disciplinary action. But now that you have established the habit of discussing situations in the circle, you can use the same format to discuss any of these behaviors as well. So circle up, get out your talking piece, remind everyone of the expectations of the circle, and begin. As you have your discussion, students will learn to take responsibility for their actions as their classmates hold them accountable and impose consequences on which everyone decides. Students will also learn to display empathy as their classmates have the opportunity to express how their day has been impacted by the disruption. And ultimately, broken relationships can be rebuilt, and instead of ending the day with someone missing from your community because they've been removed, the day ends with everyone together, ready to come back tomorrow and start again. As you learn to implement circles into your daily classroom habit, several positive outcomes can result. You will see fewer classroom disruptions as the community becomes more and more important to its members. You will write fewer referrals as your students begin to manage their own behaviors more effectively. You will see increased problem-solving ability in your students, as well as increased empathy. And ultimately, school attendance, grades, and graduation rates will all increase as your school becomes a positive place where students know they are heard, respected, and given the ability to participate in a healthy community. Thank you for watching this introduction to community circles in your classroom. If you're interested in learning more, here are 2 resources that are easily accessible through the internet or on Amazon.